I had huge wins. I had huge pitfalls. I was sideways every which way. So today, what I'm doing is I am teaching and coaching other small businesses because, first of all, I just feel like it's a little bit of my calling.
Mm,
And second of all, I can save them a lot of time and money and anguish from what I went through. And I just feel like, if I would have known now what back then, how much easier life could have been.
seriously.
And part of it is the statistics are not super fun. When you look at small business statistics, they tell you 1 out of 2 fail by the first 5 years. So
Mm.
I'm passionate about stopping that from happening because I don't believe they fail. I believe they quit.
Hello, amazing humans, and welcome to episode number 290 of the Game On Girlfriend podcast. When I started my business, I was at least smart enough. I made a lot of mistakes, but I was at least smart enough to know I needed other entrepreneurs around me. And I signed up for this entrepreneurial networking group in New York City. And in one of my very first meetings, there was a woman on stage sobbing. And she was talking about how she had just put her entire team's payroll on a credit card because cash flow was so tight. And I will say, the facilitator at that meeting did something amazing. She turned to everybody in the audience. Now, I was still new to business at this point, so I didn't realize what was happening or how common this was. But she turned to the audience and said, "How many of you have had to do something similar?" I was stunned when almost half of the hands in the room went up. It made me, one, appreciate how hard this is at times to run a business, but also it pointed to something really important, which is those of us running small businesses, those of us really stepping out of the corporate world and creating our own way of life, our own small business, our own entrepreneurship, we can run into roadblocks. And when we're together, we can help each other through them, not only to anticipate them and avoid them, but also to get through them when they do happen. And that brings us to today's incredible guest, Jennifer Koch. Jennifer is a woman who traded her corporate perks for cupcake chaos and turned frosting into a franchise and now transforms overwhelmed, underpaid business owners into confident CEOs. With 25 plus years of hard earned entrepreneurial wisdom, including bounced paychecks, brand pivots, and franchising wins, Jen has helped local businesses earn more with less stress without selling their souls on social media. Her superpower is spotting exactly what's not working and fixing it fast. That is with pricing that pays, messaging that magnetizes, and strategies that scale. What I love so much about Jennifer's work is the transparency she's bringing to entrepreneurship. It is really critical that we kind of rip away any shame or embarrassment or the idea that we can't talk about money or we have to tell everybody that our businesses are running well. Sometimes it's tough. And we need to be honest about that with ourselves so we can actually address what's happening, but also creating a board of advisors around us that can support us and other entrepreneurs. It's just absolutely key. As you listen in today, I want you to listen for the moment where Jennifer had to actually put her own team's payroll on a credit card. One of those moments you never forget, but also how she took that moment and really turned that into a catalyst to help so many other entrepreneurs move from cash flow chaos to powerful CEO. You're going to love this episode. Pop in your earphones and let's get to it. Jennifer, welcome to the Game On Girlfriend podcast. I'm thrilled that you're spending time with us today. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm an avid listener. I feel so honored to be on this side of the microphone.
So fun, isn't it? You're like,
It
wait a minute,
is.
what really happens when they record stuff there?
I know I get a behind the scenes view here. It's very fun.
God, I'm so glad. I'm so glad. And I know we have so much to share all of the amazing listeners who have their own business, who are contemplating their own business, who have started their business and thought, what in the actual flip have I done to my life? You are the woman for them to listen to. I'm really, really happy to share your insights with them.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully, I can help them stay motivated and stay in the game, right?
Yeah, right. That is 90% of it. It really is. Okay, so before we jump in to all the gooey goodness of running a business, what that takes from us as human beings on planet Earth trying to live life and run businesses, there's a lot of things I would assume you could have done with your one and only precious life, Jennifer. Why is this what you have chosen to do with your life?
Whew, that's a loaded question for a long journey. So, I jumped into entrepreneurship 25 years ago. I was in corporate America and back then loved my corporate job, loved the paycheck that came with it.
Yeah.
But in order to keep moving up the corporate ladder, I had to keep relocating. And my husband and I had been married about, I don't know, 6, 7 years. We had one daughter at the time. And I didn't want to keep doing that. That wasn't my path. I didn't want to do that for my children, my husband's career. And so I think I just always had this itch to be an entrepreneur. I don't know where it came from because my family, there weren't any before me. So I left that cushy corporate job and I jumped in and opened up my own cookie business. And why I'm doing what I'm doing today is because when I look back at that, I had no clue what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
So much so that I opened my business and 2 days later delivered my second daughter.
Oh, dear heavens.
Yeah, because I thought, oh, yeah, I'll get that open. No problem. You just you just do this, you do that, and boom, 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 you got a business. Yeah, well, everything took a heck of a lot longer than I thought.
Oh, my
And I
goodness.
ended up being found out I was pregnant, which was such joy. But what a chaos. What a chaos. The good news is I owned that business for over 20 years.
Wow. So wait, hi. Whoa. First of all, we got to back that up. 2 days and then you gave birth?
2 days I gave birth, and the business was a cookie by design. That we did these cookie gifting on, sticks. And my husband literally picked me up from the hospital with cookie bouquets in the back of the car that we had to deliver. I got up the next morning and went into work with my baby girl because I had like 2 employees that showed up to bake and decorate and answer the phone. And they're like looking at me, who's this woman that started a business and had a baby? And we don't know what to do. And I thought, well, I don't know what to do either, but here we go. So that's how I started entrepreneurship.
Holy cannoli. So you like delivered babies and cookies in the same day.
All on the same
Like,
day. Yeah.
full service delivery.
Full service.
Oh my goodness. Deliver it. You need it. We'll deliver it. Wow.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I put Uber Eats to shame, man. I can do it all. No, just kidding. But yeah, it was crazy, absolutely insane. And of course, nothing I would ever recommend for anybody.
0 stars. Do not recommend. Yeah. I mean, wow. That must have been really, really intense. That's impressive. And then you kept that up and running for 20 years.
I kept it up and running for 20 years. There was so many hiccups along the way. I mean, I had huge wins. I had huge pitfalls. I was sideways every which way. So today what I'm doing is I am teaching and coaching other small businesses because first of all, I just feel like it's a little bit of my calling.
Mm.
And second of all, I can save them a lot of time and money and anguish from what I went through. And I just feel like, if I would have known now what back then, how much easier life could have been.
Seriously.
And part of it is the statistics are not super fun. When you look at small business statistics, they tell you 1 out of 2 fail by the first 5 years. So I'm passionate about stopping that from happening because I don't believe they fail. I believe they quit. And so that's really why I do what I do today is I take that experience and just want to help others enjoy their businesses for as long as they can.
Oh my God. I love that. But we have to go back to this. They don't fail, they quit. I think I know the answer to this, but I really want to dive into this with you because I feel like you've probably got this peek under the curtain for so many that you work with. But what causes them to quit? What is the missing ingredient? No pun intended, cookie deliveries. But what is the missing ingredient? Like what happens when someone just throws their hands up and they're like, that's it, I quit.
Yeah, it's a lot of things, but let's start with, okay, why do we start businesses? For me, I wanted freedom and flexibility, and that is a very common theme that you will ask entrepreneurs, why'd you start this? They want freedom, flexibility, want to create their own path, all of that. And when they first start, I always say they're like teenagers. They think they know it all. They jump in, they do it all, and you kind of have to, right?
Yes.
You have to be customer service. You have to be accounting. You have to be marketing. You have to be, packaging, delivery, everything. And that's great for a while. But then we get to this kind of hump, and it's usually I see it around year 3 or 4, where we're not paying ourselves what we were making before.
Speak on it. Mm-hmm.
And then we start looking around and we think, oh, that person's so much more successful than me. What's wrong with me? And then we think, oh, business is kind of stalled a little. We did really well when we first started because your warm market is going to get you going, right? Your friends, your family, your neighbor, they're going to cheer you on. They're going to get you going. They're going to maybe buy a few things. But eventually that weans itself. They're not there for you anymore. So we find ourselves in this place that I call the messy in the middle.
Mm.
And so we're often stuck, things are plateauing, and we start to internalize it. We start to think that we're not cut out for it. We start to think that, oh, I doubt I'm going to make this. So mindset starts to take over. You could have the best business plan, the best strategy, the best product ever, which you need, but then mindset starts to get in your way.
Yeah.
And you just start to doubt yourself. And then you start to think, oh, it's easier if I just go back to corporate, or it'll be easier if I just quit. And so I see a lot of business owners quit before they can reach their full potential.
That just made me, I have to be so honest. I got like my stomach hurt while you were talking about that because it's so true. And I mean, listen, for some people, corporate is right. But I think you say something that I think is really spot on. And that is if you started to create your businesses because the world needs it. Right. And I know there are some people who say, oh, but it is easier to get the corporate job. It's easier in some ways.
Yes.
In other ways, it's much harder, right? And we all get to kind of do that seesaw. But I really appreciate what you said about both mindset and paying ourselves, because I think that is really where people get messed up. Honestly, it's like, well, I can't pay me because everything else is happening. And then there's the reassessment that needs to happen in order to pay yourself, which I think is so critical. But when it comes to mindset, before I ask this question, I was just say, I want to know what you really think starts to get in the way mindset wise and how much that affects us. But you just really triggered something for me when I was coming up in my own little corporate career. I worked with a lot of startups, and I was really responsible for creating PowerPoint presentations to pitch to venture capitalists and get the money. And I would always listen to the conversations, of the venture capitalists because I was the first one in there. I'm getting us set up. I'm talking about all this stuff and really listening. And what they were always looking for was the confidence of the founder.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the business plan's got to be there. They've got to know there's something viable. Outside of that, they're like, is this person going to keep going when the stuff hits the fan? Because it's gonna.
Right.
And they would talk about the grit and the tenacity of the owner. And I really was like, wait a minute, this whole pitch, like all these decks I've put together with numbers, they're going to take a look at our founder in 2 minutes and decide whether or not this is a go.
Isn't that interesting? And it's so spot on. Yeah, so spot on.
Yeah. And so knowing that, right? Like if we know these people have millions of dollars to invest in small businesses, they have this ready to go, and they're looking at the owner and they're looking at whether or not this person believes in themselves enough to keep going. What is it, do you think, that most small business owners run into? What is the mindset that starts to eat at them? Like what starts to erode their belief in themselves?
Well, I think you said it with confidence, because action, momentum, results, that builds confidence. And so when we first start, we get a few results, we get excited, we're out there just talking like crazy about our business. And then when we plateau, we start to doubt, doubt comes in, imposter syndrome, all those things that we hear about. And that's what I love about entrepreneurs is they are the biggest group of people that are willing to go do that self-help, willing to dive into the books and the podcasts and go there. Most people don't even know what you're talking about when you say imposter syndrome, but they do, right? Yeah. And so it is a confidence thing. And you start to just kind of wonder, is this going to work? And you want it to work because you love it. I mean, let's be real. I painted a picture of the tough stuff of entrepreneurship, but the flip side, I've been at this 25 years. Why? Because I can't imagine doing anything else. There is freedom and flexibility. There is all of that when you do it right. And so for me, when I look at what's going on in a business, I always say, who are you surrounding yourself with?
Ooh, this is juicy. I think this is critical. Yeah.
You always hear everybody say, what's your why? Why did you start this? Why? Well, why is your launch pad? You need a why. We still go there, but it's the who's that are going to keep you in the game longer.
So true. So true. I think we're really the culmination. This might be simplifying this a little bit, but I don't think so. I think we're actually the culmination of the conversations we have on a daily basis, right? I mean,
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We don't have bosses, we don't have coworkers. We can't just go run down the hall and get a pep talk. We're a lot of times isolated and it can be really lonely. And that's when you start to spiral
yeah.
and think about the what ifs and the when and, what if this doesn't work? And, what are people going to think of me? And you start to go down that path where if you had some people, your phone a friend, your hey, help me, this isn't working, I need a pep talk. If you have some of those core people that
Mhm.
you really trust and value, that can make all the difference.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's so interesting too. I would love to know if you've noticed this too, Jennifer, but I can really get a sense for where someone is in their business based on their current complaints, which is a form of conversation. And I don't mean that like they're whining, not at all. But you can sort of assess where someone's falling based on the conversations they're looking to have. They're seeking out these conversations.
Right.
And when we don't have people around us having them, it's really tough. You're like, am I crazy?
Right.
Did I think is this nuts? Like, am I imagining that this is possible? And then if you have five people around you who are like, oh, that pitfall. Yep, that's going to hit you right around year 3. And here's 5 things I did that really helped. And just having that conversation, it opens up all the possibility and what's next, as opposed to, is this the end?
Absolutely. And
Right.
and that's why it's funny you say 5 because I do. I say you need your 5 own personal board of directors, I call them.
I
Bring
love
them in.
that.
They're completely unpaid, but bring them in.
Yeah. Yeah. And okay. Oh, I love this. Okay. So let's say someone's listening right now and they're like, ooh, I don't have 5. Who should they look to be their 5?
Well, I always say look to somebody who's older than you, who's been there, done that, because
Yeah.
they are the calming presence in your life. And they're the ones that are going to be like, yep, this is normal. Here's a few ideas. So you need that calming force.
Mm,
The second one is find somebody younger than you because they bring energy and they keep you relevant and they help you see that you're on point, you're on trend, that you're speaking to the audience right. They're just going to bring that kind of new perspective to things. Because sometimes when we're in our own little worlds here, all
yeah.
we see is what we see and we can lose track of what's going on. So I always say bring in that younger person. And then it's okay to collaborate with other people in your own industry.
Preach on this one. Go.
I
Oh, I
mean,
love this.
if you're an interior designer, do not be threatened by other interior designers in your world because each one of you is a little different. You have your own spin, you have your own flair. But what better to support each other because they get what you're going through? They truly get it. And then the fourth person I always say is just bring on like somebody outside of your industry because once again, we don't want to get stuck in our own 4 walls, if you will, your own
Mhm.
mindset. What is going on with other businesses? Because sometimes you might see something that could maybe spark an idea for you or remotivate you or something that's happening in a completely different industry than you're in. And then the last one is we all need that phone a friend. I mean, I have a girlfriend who owns her own event business, and she called me up one day, literally, I need a pep talk. It's like, okay, meet for coffee. I'll be there in 15 minutes. She was just struggling to get corporate sponsors. She was about ready to throw in the towel. And we just talked through a few things. If nothing else, you just listen, just somebody to
Ugh,
listen.
I
And then
love
she went
that.
off her merry way and kept going. And, we get back to our world. So you definitely need that confidant, someone who
Mm.
isn't going to judge you, is just going to just listen, just somebody to listen.
Oh, it's so. Don't you feel like sometimes, Jennifer, if we can just have a heart to heart here for a second, don't you feel like sometimes if you could just have someone listen, they don't even have to say anything?
Right.
Which is, could you just like be a container for what I'm about to vomit out? All of my thoughts, please. Like, isn't that
Exactly.
one of the more important things we can do for each other as people?
It really is. And,
Yeah.
my husband's my biggest cheerleader, but he's not an entrepreneur. So he
Right.
doesn't get exactly what I'm going through. So that's why it's nice to have people that are entrepreneurs with you
Mhm.
that, yes, you can just don't fix my problems, just let me vent. And then, let me share a few wins so we can get back in a happy place and I'll be back on my way.
Yes. Totally. Totally. I think that's really underrated. I got to be honest. I really do. Okay, so I love this idea that we surround ourselves with the right people. We're dealing with confidence on the mindset. And then that personal growth, in my humble opinion, Sarah Walton says this, right? That personal growth is business growth and the business growth is personal growth. Have you found that to be true with your clients as well?
Absolutely. I mean, I say when you own a business, your personal and your business life, they're intertwined. It's very, very hard to have a container for your business, a container for your personal life. You can do that more when you're working outside of the home or outside of your business if you don't own a business. But when you own a business, they intertwine. I mean, shoot, my kids came to work with me a lot when I owned that bakery. So it's very hard to separate the two. So when you are growing personally and professionally,
Yeah.
you're growing your business as well. And sometimes I joke around that my husband always used to say, you should be a therapist. Everyone talks to you and tells you their problems. I'm like, well, I kind of am. You deal with entrepreneurs, and a lot of times I kind of am because yes, this stuff just it has its way of, infiltrating all of our both sides of the coin, business and personal.
100%. I love to say to people too, you are the source of your business, right?
Mm.
You are the source of it. And, I always joke with therapy, right? The first question is tell me about your mother, right? Because the mother is the source of your life.
Oh my
And
gosh,
so
yes.
there's a big parallel there, right? Like I always joke about that, but I'm like, so tell me about your business. Because it's
Yeah.
like I'm learning a lot about you. But I also, in full disclosure, I always tell everybody this. I have yet to have a client in my 15 years of doing this where their primary romantic relationship does not come into the conversation. Not once. And it's not because there's anything wrong with it either. They can have an incredible, beautiful, gorgeous, luscious relationship, but it's so important that there is an understanding there of what that intersection is in business because
Yeah.
it's all you, right? You're the source of this thing you've created, and your life partner is the source of your personal life, right? So it's like this, oh my gosh, these intersections are so beautiful. And I think, running a business is just such an opportunity to find out more about yourself and who you are and what you want to leave on the planet. It's just beautiful.
It really is. And it's powerful, but it's also very freeing, when you just let go and trust yourself and trust your business and trust that what you're showing up every day, you're going to see the results. I mean, I think that's part of another reason why
Mm.
sometimes people quit is we have become a society where, if I don't get it tomorrow, it's not going to work. And that doesn't happen in business. It takes time. It just takes time. And it takes pivoting and it takes tweaking and it takes, marketing messaging changes and offer changes and pricing changes and all the things. And we get impatient because we're not wired that way anymore. Our world is telling us, now, now, now. And we have to give ourselves the grace that no, if you just keep showing up consistently, it's going to come. You just have to trust in it and trust in yourself.
Mm, I love that so much. This is not a just add water insta business situation. That is not how this works. That's why I always tell everybody about that entrepreneur porn that we see on social media. I'm like,
Right.
no, it is not.
Yeah.
You don't just add water.
No,
That's
you're
not
not
how
going to
this
get to
works.
7 figures in 90 days. Sorry.
My favorite. No,
Hate to
I make
burst your
money.
bubble.
My favorite. I make money from the beach with the ball of twine. It's like, no, you don't. Okay. You heard it here first, folks. That is not accurate.
That is not accurate.
So I would love this, Jennifer. Let's do a little let's say somebody comes to you right now, somebody's listening maybe, and they're at this hump, right? That oh my gosh, this is really going to work. Friends and family have purchased from me, right? Maybe let's say if it's a physical product, I'm in a couple of stores. If it's a service-based product, you're starting to see people you don't know personally come on in, and they're hitting that plateau. We've got the board of advisors. Thank you. We love you, board of advisors.
Yes, we do.
From a strategy perspective, what do you love to share with people when it comes to starting this? I mean, this is kind of like that first step into grit, right? There isn't adding water here. This isn't Insta. This is
Right.
adding grit. What do you love to tell people strategy wise to help them through that moment?
Well, it's interesting because what I tell them is so counterintuitive to what they want to do. I tell them we need to take a step back and we need to evaluate all the areas of your business. The first thing I do when I work with clients is this business breakthrough strategy. And I start with their numbers because people come to me and it's like, it's not working. I didn't sell this. And it's like, well, what do your numbers say? And it's like, oh, okay, maybe it wasn't so bad as I thought it was going to be. So we start there. And I'm a big fan of let's look at your profit. Because like you, Sarah, I want people to make good money. I want them to pay themselves. I want them to make good money. And so many times, especially in service-based businesses, I see them putting offers out there. And when we dissect what's really going on, they're hardly making any money. So for instance, I worked with a photographer. By the time we dissected her time, I think she was down to about $2 an hour.
Oh, my heart just hurt.
Yeah, like that's
So
not worth
happens
it. You're so
so
yeah, so you're
often.
so much more worth that. So we talk
Mhm.
about profit margins. We talk about that first because then you can confidently go out to market. And then the second thing we talk about is you need to find a micro audience. You need to narrow what you're doing, almost like this permission to do less. And I will tell you, every single one freaks out and they have this fear because it feels counterintuitive. But
Yeah.
if you just try to market to everybody, it's just like this megaphone and not everyone's tuning you out. So you really have to figure out, what do I want to be known for?
Mhm.
What is my unique differentiator? And that's hard to do by yourself. And so
Right.
that's the process I take them through, is to really show them. And a lot of times I see something in them that they don't see,
Mhm.
and they would never think that's their secret sauce. And so then we can really start to create marketing messaging. We can figure out where to show up. You know,
Mhm.
so many of my clients come to me and they're having coffees every day of the week and they're going to 5 networking events and
Oh,
they're burned out. Well,
totally.
once you really know what you want to be known for, who you want to serve, who you love to work with, then you can just go to 2 networking events where those folks are hanging out instead of having to go to everything. So
Mhm.
it's kind of this 3-step process, but it starts with your numbers. You got to know your numbers.
Yeah, I love that. One of my favorite things to tell people, I always love doing this. They're like, I have so many. Sorry, my brain just exploded into the microphone. But the first one is, I love having people calculate how much money they've made to date, just top line. Just be like, look at what you created, look at what you
Yeah.
generated, look at how much money has come into your universe because you offered something. You created something that didn't exist. Now it's here, and look at what it's done. And people go, oh,
Yeah.
oh. So
We
I
don't
love
do
that you
that
do that.
enough.
I
We don't
agree.
do that enough. We're always so forward thinking as
Yeah.
entrepreneurs. We don't look backwards and really pat ourselves on the back. And the other thing that's interesting is usually folks at this hump, they've been working in their business. And so I'm going to start helping them craft a plan to work on their business. And
Hmm.
that's very scary for them because if I'm not the doer, you know, how is this going to work? And so, you know, that's just talking through years of experience, telling them it's going to be okay, and the mindset, and putting a plan together and working the plan.
I love it. I love it. And I think also the power of numbers too, Jennifer, is this, these were the two things that came to me at once was how much have you made totally? And then like since you started, and then it's not working. My favorite is say, okay, what's not working?
Right.
Like, what does that mean? Like, what are we saying? What?
Yeah,
And I
right.
think that's important because I think we can get caught up in this idea that like whatever it is, isn't working. And then that becomes the message. And that's where the doubt comes in.
Absolutely. And, you know, like you said, what is it? Is it today the phone's not working? Well, maybe yesterday the phone was ringing off the hook. You know, it's just really so subjective and just there's so many elements that come into play. But, you know, entrepreneurship's such a fun journey. And so that's why I'm really passionate. I know you are about helping people make really good money and
Yeah.
stay in the game. And I always say, you know, women that make good money go on to do great things.
Every time.
And there's this
Every
like
time.
block about paying themselves. And if you can get them over that hump to know that, you know,
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure you're not going to just hoard all that money you're making. Most likely you've got a big heart and you're going to go on and do something really good with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
It's
yeah.
so, it's so critical. And it is, I remember when I was like, wait a minute, I haven't made any money. And I was like, no, 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 the business has made a lot of money. And I was like, oh, right, me.
Yeah.
I literally think I was 18 months in and I was like, oh, yeah, me. Oh,
Right.
yeah, I started this so I could make money.
Yeah.
But I think when it first starts, when the money comes in, there's so much you need to get accomplished. It's very easy to fall into the trap of immediately spending that money.
Oh, very easy.
It's
Yeah.
so easy. You're like, oh, I need images. Oh, I need the website. Oh, I
Yep.
need this branding. Oh, I need this thing. Oh, and that you're like, oh crap, the money. And I
Yeah.
just think that's a common experience. I'm so glad we're talking about it because I would bet a couple bucks that somebody listening right now is actually in that phase and they're like, oh, right, right.
Yeah.
So then it becomes time to work on the business, not in it as much, and start to understand those profit margins. I think
Yeah. And I
that's
think some of that is chasing, like when you do get
mm,
stuck. Oh, it's the website that's holding me back. Oh, I need a social media manager and I got to pay him this. And those things can be distractions. They really can. And I've fallen in it. I've done it. Trust me, I've done everything. And, I've spent a lot of money chasing lots of different ideas. And, if I would have just slowed down and just kind of took a pause, looked at what's working, let the numbers tell the story, and then kind of craft a plan from there, I probably could have saved, I know I could have saved thousands of
Oh,
dollars.
thousands,
Yeah.
thousands. And I will say, as one business coach to another, I think it's one of the things I love so much about coaching is not only like you have someone by your side who's been in the trenches, but, and I find this even as a coach, you never know when that one little nugget is going to get dropped in a conversation that saves you thousands.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Absolutely. Yeah.
it's so beautiful. And one of the things I joke about, one of my first clients, her name is Tasha Blasi. She's amazing. She's an IVF coach. And when she came to me, she said, no, I want to help really wealthy women organize their closets because she's one of those people who can make any closet just look amazing, right?
Yeah.
And I just looked at her and said, are you that you want to hang out with wealthy women and be in their closets all day? And she was like, oh God, no. Right. And just that one moment, right? It saved her years probably. And she
Right.
said that many times. She's like, do you know how many years I would have lost? How much money would have been spent? And it's so important. This is where I think sometimes I'd love to know your thoughts on this, Jennifer, because I think sometimes people get embarrassed when it comes to money. They're like, I'm money in business. They're like, I'm just supposed to know all this. I'm just supposed to have this figured out. I get it. And it's like, oh dear heavens, no, there's so
No.
many ways you can go. The more people you can talk to that kind of like ask you questions, the more time and money you're going to save every single time.
Oh, absolutely. And no, that's so true. There's this thing when somebody will be like, oh, how's your business? We're all like, oh, it's great. Everything's great. Why do we have to do that? It's okay to say it's really good in these parts, but sometimes this is a little tough. And I'll tell you, I was about 5 years into my journey of owning that cookie business, and I had a very humbling moment when it came to financials. I was in my car with my husband and daughters driving on vacation when my manager called me. And I pick up the phone, and it's one of those you could just tell, like, how am I going to deliver this news? Our paychecks were bouncing.
Oh, son of a gun.
And I had a great staff that I adored and loved. And I thought, oh my gosh, first of all, the first thought, I'm so embarrassed.
The worst.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and then of course, oh, see, who am I? I'm not cut out for this. Oh my gosh, I can't, I can't believe I did this. Am I, what's
Yes.
wrong with me? Why did I miss this? Da da da. All of that started playing in my head. And well, then to make matters worse, we didn't have any kind of emergency fund for the business.
Ah.
So we had to pull over and take out a cash advance on a credit card to make payroll. And
You're
so
not the first person that's done that, by the way.
Yeah.
I
no,
really,
but those are the
all the
moments
time.
that you remember because
Yeah.
then you're like, I've got to do something different. So then what
That's
did I
never
do? I went
happening
and got
again.
help and I
Mhm.
learned how to do it differently. Where if I would have ahead of time had the guts to just say, you know what, is anybody out there good with cash flow? Because the irony of it, revenue was great. Revenue was climbing. But I was in that habit of, oh, I'm just going to look at the check account if there's money in it. Woo, I'll scratch out a check, and that caught up to me. And so, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to not have it all together. And I think the
Yes.
more we remind people of that, every single person out there has gone through something similar, in one way or another. And, let's just support each other and help each other instead of feeling like we have to have it all together.
Oh, preach on it. Yeah. And I meant what I said. I mean, I remember one of my very first times I was in a networking group for business owners because I was like, I can't do this by myself. And a woman went up on stage. We were in New York City and she was just sobbing. She's like, I just had to put payroll on a credit card. And the brilliant was that the person facilitating this turned to the crowd and said, how many of you have had to do that? And I would say half the hands went up.
Yeah.
And just knowing that, one, it takes all the shame out of the room, right? Like the balloon pops and everyone can exhale. And then it's like, okay, so how do we help each other not have that happen?
Right.
It's like, this isn't the end. It's what's next.
Mm-hmm.
And that mindset shift between this is the end. I'm an idiot. I'm a fraud. I can't even believe I thought I could do this, right? That's an ending conversation. And I think when we can move that into, okay, so this happened this time.
Right.
That's okay.
But it's not going to happen again.
That's right. We're going to fix it. Right.
Right.
And we're going to balance this out and figure this out because this sucks.
Yeah.
Right? But this isn't the end. This just
Right.
sucks today.
Mm-hmm.
So what's next? And I think that shift in conversation, I was so grateful for that moment. And I love that that was your moment as well. I think those are so important.
They
They're just
are.
so
And I
critical.
surrounded myself with other entrepreneurs and I just started learning instead of just, being an ostrich with my head in the sand and, looking at revenue, looking at the top number, which that's a fun number. I call that the vanity number, but we need to be looking at what trickles down.
Yeah. And, that's another thing I remind people about that entrepreneur porn out there. I think that's doing great damage to what people think is possible. These people saying, oh, I just ran a 7-figure launch. But what they're not telling you is they spent more than they made in order to hit that number.
Exactly.
And it's really important that we share that stat, right? It's not, here's what I made. It's here's the profit of my
Right.
last launch. That's actually the number that we all want to be looking at, because then they may have unlocked something they can teach you.
Mhm.
Outside of that, don't bank on it.
No.
Don't bank on it, right?
Right. It's not all as it appears.
It's not. It's not. And I love the honesty in that. And I think it's so important because we really do. We need people to be successful at this. I think at a time when we're having a collapse of faith in major institutions, we're watching corporations do certain things. We need small businesses so much. We want to buy from people that we know and trust. We want to help the family business. We want to help the person who's starting out because they had a problem no one had an answer to, so they figured it out. So it's like, stay in that game, keep learning, keep growing. Lots of grit.
Absolutely. I am such a fan of the small business because our communities need them. They're the heart and soul of our communities. They're the folks that show up at the nonprofits and volunteer and march in the 4th of July parade. And you're right. We need to support them more than ever.
Agreed. Oh, I love it. Okay. So Jennifer, if someone's listening and they're like, I want me some more Jennifer, how do I get in on this? How can people find you?
The best way is my website, which is nextwavebusinesscoaching.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, and I have my own podcast too called Main Street Success Stories, where I interview other business owners so we can all learn from each other.
Love it. I love it. And I believe you have a free gift for everybody listening today. Yeah.
I do. I have a free 30-minute training. You can listen as you walk, listen as you garden, just take it with you about the 3 keys to a profitable business so that I can help you become profitable or more profitable.
More profitable. Please.
Yes.
All the profits.
All the profits.
Oh my goodness. Well, Jennifer, thank you so much for spending time with us today, for being so honest and open with us, and for the work that you do to help so many entrepreneurs keep it going. I just thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for what you do. I appreciate it.